Well, it's amazing. Life is full of experiences. It is an incredible journey. Just looking at even just what's behind me. This is me working with Grant Hill, now a Hall of Famer. Used to come into the office to get adjusted. Eventually, started bringing other members of the Orlando Magic in. Eventually, I was going to the Orlando Magic stadium to adjust the team, going to games, working with Doc Rivers, the coach, who's gone on to be this epic coach for a lot of other big teams. Grant's now in the Hall of Fame and he's on TV all the time. And he's an owner of one of the NBA franchises. Just crazy journey. Reinhard Bonnke, getting to spend time with a guy that traveled the world, saving millions of people, putting, literally 2 million plus into his events. This is this sea of bodies. It looks like the stage is floating on it. It's 2.2 million people in Laos in a very famous sermon he gave out there. And part of this journey of life in doing all these big things, I'm also looking at all the medals. They're all gold, but I didn't win any of those races. I don't know why they give you gold medals. Those are all participation medals, means I finished. But the idea of this journey is to experience it and hopefully, actually win some races, to be thriving. So from, the victory here was just completing it sometimes, occasionally maybe get on the podium. But part of the whole process here, part of living, is you need money. And so we're going to talk a lot more about money in our coaching and our consulting here, because too often I'm finding doctors get way down the road. I mean, they're 40, 50, 60 years old, and they have nothing to show for it financially. So they find themselves, and this is a desperate situation people come to me with quite often, is they're now what they had hoped to be kind of the tail end of their career, where they could start to back off, finally spend more time with family, relax a little bit, stop pushing as hard. And yet they can't, because the money isn't there. And so they realize they're going to have to keep working 40 hours plus, keep pushing that clinic at a time where maybe their body doesn't want to do it anymore. Their mind doesn't want to do it. Their spouse maybe is tired of it. They wanted to go travel more and see kids or grandkids, and the money isn't there. So these money conversations sometimes can get tough because people don't like to talk about their personal finances. It's this like really personal thing that a lot of folks like to keep behind the curtain. A lot of doctors I found really haven't learned much about money. They haven't invested a lot of time and energy into it. And some people really like to not think about it at all. I do a lot of couples counseling and setting budgets for the household. And usually there's one person who hates the conversation. They don't even want to know what's going on. Often those people also like to spend. Then there's the more irritated person that's really aware of what's going on, would love to learn more and handle this more professionally and more intentionally. And sometimes that's a battle in a marriage. In fact, the leading cause of divorce is money. And not just divorce, but just unhappiness at home. So I really want to spend a lot more time on it. I do invest quite a bit of my weeks and months and years studying money investments. I spend a lot of time each week looking at real estate, looking at other forms of investments that I like to utilize. But it's a big process. In fact, I'm writing a series of mini ebooks right now to just start giving people bite-sized chunks of data that they can start to learn and utilize in their lives. But, obviously for our actual clients, making sure that we can do more. So somebody said to me recently, a brand new client came on and said, I just don't understand money. And this is a very successful, very well-known chiropractor. In fact, he has hundreds of clients of his own, but he came to me for coaching for this next year because he hasn't economically done well, even though the practice is solid. His consulting is solid, amazing guy, puts on some really big seminars, just the money isn't there. So we're teaching about money. I thought that was interesting. He said, I don't understand money. And that's probably true of most people. I always point out the fact that I was very fortunate that all my mentors who are out there seeing all this volume, and they've been at chiropractic 10, 20, 30 years, and they seem old to me at the time when I got out of school or when I was still in chiropractic college. They probably weren't old. They're probably younger than I am right now. But I looked at these guys as being decades into their careers. And when I came to them to learn about volume and saving lives and staff and running a practice, they said, the first thing you need to do is get to this conference that used to go on back in the day about money. You need to learn about money before you learn anything else. And thankfully, I came along at that perfect time where that conference was cranking. The speaker, Greg Stanley, would travel around and speak at different chiropractic events at the time. He doesn't do that, unfortunately, anymore. And so I started off my career understanding what to do with the dollars that came in, what the goals were. Also, Dr. Sid Williams, who is, our big DE leader and one of our profession's icons, who I got a chance to, in his heyday, be able to sit at his feet. He said, here's the target, that when you get out of school, within 8 years, you're debt free with $1 million in the bank. So between Greg Stanley helping me understand money, teaching me about money, Sid Williams setting at least some goal that we could be aimed at, we got off on the right foot. But I've learned that's really, really rare. So I want to cover something today about the velocity of money. So my consulting program is called Velocity Consulting and Coaching. And the reason we call it consulting and coaching, by the way, is I've got several coaching certifications, which is very different than consulting. So coaching is different than mentoring, it's different than therapy, and it's different than consulting. These are different categories of interaction. So consulting is when we're teaching you, like we'll do today, teaching you about steps you should take related to, in this case, money, or it could have been about new patients or hiring staff or process, procedure. These are all consulting things, not coaching things. Coaching is really the concept of pulling the greatness out of somebody. Coaching is a series of powerful questions that you ask to help lead somebody from where they are right now to where they want to be, and even beyond to where they were born to be. So I like to do coaching and I like to do consulting, but they are kind of different, probably more important to me than it is to you. So we're going to be consulting today on the velocity of money. And I like the term velocity, like I said, which is why I named my consulting group after that. And so with velocity of money, it's obviously the speed at which money is moving is critically important to the economy overall. And then we're going to relegate it down to what that means for you and your personal finances. So first of all, the term velocity of money is a term in the economy. Economists use this term, and it's measured by the rate at which money is exchanged in any economy, in any society. So there's a whole idea of looking at the GDP and how the money supply moves through the GDP. So there's this formula that shows the rate at which 1 unit of money supply currency is being transacted for goods and services in that economy. So a dollar comes in, how quickly are people using it to buy goods and services? And that speed of money has a lot to do with the health of any particular economy. So the velocity of money is typically higher in expanding economies and lower in contracting economies. So as we're evaluating how the economy is doing, is that money moving through quickly? Person earns it and buys something with it, or is that going slowly because that economy is getting worse? So that's what it means on a grand scale. We're evaluating entire world economies. So what does this mean to you as an individual? And this is stuff I've made up. Relative to the term velocity of money, that just how do I take that and now make that apply to you so you can better understand money. So I want to walk through 4 layers. That's the takeaway from today. There's 4 layers. How many? To use Roberto Monaco's thing. That's right. You should have said 4 back to me. I can't hear you. We're in a webinar. So we're looking at 4 steps. So the first one is you've got to create the money machine. And a lot of people miss this. When I started in chiropractic, I just wanted to save lives. And I wanted to get to a certain volume based on my mentors and the volume that they were doing. And of course, for me, I always want to exceed them. So when Sid Williams says, out of debt in 8 years with $1 million in the bank, I'm like, okay, I want to do it in 4. and I ended up doing it in about 6. But I wanted to beat the record. I don't want to hear if it's 8 for everybody else. I got to do better than that. So, so for all of these things with volume, okay, if people are seeing 1,000 a week, a couple guys out there with 2,000, I want to do the 2,000. So that's all I was interested in, saving lives on a large scale. I didn't think about the money. So the first thing you have to think about with your practice is it's a money machine, but the only part of the money it's producing that really matters to you is the profit. So we're supposed to see our practices. Of course, as Sid Williams also said, don't let the left hand know what the right hand is doing. So if the left hand is the service hand and the right hand is the business hand, they're not supposed to talk to each other. The service hand just go out there and save lives and make a difference. But that business hand should be operating through the lenses of a P&L. Everything is a profit-based decision. So when somebody says, should I hire staff? I immediately say, well, we have to make sure the impact to the P&L is positive and not negative. And this usually blows the mind of the client I'm talking about, because they're just thinking, I have some jobs to do and my other staff is stressed. Can't I just hire somebody? I'm like, well, what's the impact to the P&L? In fact, there's a number that economists and business leaders associate to any staff, that whatever their salary is, they have to produce 3 times their salary as far as the impact on the P&L. And that would give us a positive P&L on that person. So if I have 5 staff, I look at them in terms of 5 P&Ls. Do all 5 of them have a positive impact? Either A, if they don't, I need to change my business structure and what I have everybody doing, or B, I got to fire some folks because they're not producing. So really, we don't in our smaller businesses have what we would call a whole lot of cheese stuffers. So at Taco Bell, there are people that make $8 an hour and just put the cheese in the taco, and they're not making a positive impact on the organization. They don't have a positive P&L. They just stuck the cheese in the taco, and the company sort of runs itself from there. Unfortunately, people line up and eat Taco Bell all day long. Apparently, I've never been there. I wouldn't know. But in our clinics, we can't afford a cheese stuffer. Occasionally, maybe I'll hire like somebody to come in at a point and do some filing, and that's like a cheese stuffer. And they make $8 an hour, come in and do some cleaning, some filing, help the staff out. But the rest of the staff, they got to produce. And that cheese stuffer, if they ever want more than $8 an hour to do some filing, like we say with any cheese stuffer, they get fired when they want to raise, and you bring in a new cheese stuffer. So we got to think, number one, when we're talking about the money machine, it's all about operating through the lenses of a P&L. Are the decisions we're making causing profit? Because that profit is what we need to produce out of the money machine, because now we've got cash flow. We've got money we can look at to move down through the other 3 parts, these 4 steps, move that money through to come out on the other side to where it gets, as Sid Williams said, it ends up in the bank towards that $1 million. Now, in the bank isn't in the Bank of America or City National or wherever you do your banking. It's where it's been put into something that's your future. It's now put away where it's now replicating itself. It's producing more money because it's making interest day upon day, year upon year. So we'll get to that part into the future. So we talk about protect the future. So number 2, so number 1, money machine. Number 2, protect the future. So we have to be thinking about the fact that that as we look at how much we spend in our homes and our businesses, and what's left over, so that we can invest, this is protecting the future. So when that money comes in, if I just put it in my personal bank account, somehow my family figures out how to spend it. And I don't want to act like I've got an evil family or something, but if the money's just sitting there in our personal bank account, somehow it gets spent, whether it's clothes or vacation or food or cost of living that goes up because we decide to get bigger and better stuff. It just disappears. So when we talk about protecting the future, I have felt like for a quarter century now, I am battling myself, my wife, and my kids, and just life itself to protect the future, to say this chunk, this percent, this dollar amount is going to come out of the money machine every single month and go into savings. And we'll get into what those savings are in a second. But that's number 2, protect the future. You got to battle to carve out that piece. Because like I started, you don't want to wake up. And Jim Rohn used to talk about this. He was Anthony Robbins' mentor. He used to say, when people end up older and without money, what happened, and what do we say to our kids when they say, Daddy, Mommy, what happened to all the money? And he used to say, they smoked it, they lost it, they burnt it, because they weren't protecting the future. We weren't making sure to carve out that piece that goes into the future so that you are accumulating wealth and you're headed towards prosperity, and that you're getting to this auspicious future that you deserve from all the hard work, because you smoked it. You didn't protect your future. So number 2, protect the future. Number 3, get an opportunity habit. I mentioned earlier, I spend many hours a week. I'm just really investigating, as an example. So I look at something that talked about you can make 12% interest tax-free based on a way of doing real estate investing. I may never do that. It could be a scam. I don't even know who these people are, but I'm gonna run that down. I'm gonna hunt down the person doing that. I'm gonna investigate it. I'm gonna run it by experts that I know. I'm gonna look into it. And that's because I have an opportunity habit. I see opportunity that looks like it could be valid, and I hunt it down. I've got at least 4 different people that are involved in either loans or mortgages that are secured by the properties that I'm always investigating. I have a habit of investigating these things because, you could have this secured investment that generates anywhere from 9 to 24% returns. That's protected by the house that it goes into, or the properties, or the multifamilies, the things like that. So I'm always investigating those things to make sure that I've got a place to put my money, so it's generating nice returns. I must look at, in terms of real estate, I must look at, probably a dozen properties a day, just through websites I subscribe to that send them through based on certain criteria I'm looking for. So I'm always investigating. It's a habit of mine that I'm investigating opportunities, as well as just the interactions I have with my broker who does our investments into, stocks and things like that. So, she has things she sends me every week. Obviously, she is the expert. I basically trust her with a lot of it, but she knows she has to meet certain Ben criteria based on my risk tolerance. And we meet regularly to make sure that the percentages that she's supposed to be investing at remain accurate. And there are times when I say, hey, stop investing because I'm worried about what's going on out there. So I'd like to slow down that process, stop it, or even sell some stuff. But again, it's a habit. I'm involved in that because I've got to have a place, again, as the money comes in from the money machine, I'm looking at where it needs to go. And if you have enough of a habit, you have several good places that it can go on a regular basis. So it's always multiplying itself. So it's really cool if you've had this habit for a long period of time. It's really neat occasionally to look at, I'll get my annual update as to what our net worth is and be like, wow, that grew quite a bit. That's just based on, I've been at this a quarter century. That's grown nicely based on the miracle of compounding interest, but it's all come from, number 1, the money machine. Number 2, protecting the future. Number 3, having a habit of looking for opportunities and taking advantage of those, as well as just being involved in making sure that nothing's getting messed up. And by the way, occasionally I have messed up, and occasionally my brokers have messed up, and other experts. It's not a perfect science, which is why we have to do a good job with it. And finally, number 4, the velocity of money. So, all this has to happen quickly because, as you've heard and we've seen over and over again, it's been proven through all kinds of math, science, and statistics, that the quicker the money goes in and begins to multiply, the faster you become wealthy, the faster you become affluent and a multimillionaire. And the slower the velocity, just like as we're evaluating the overall GDP, the overall economy of any nation, the slower this velocity moves, the slower the money moves, the more your personal economy contracts. So faster velocity, that's an expanding personal economy. Slower velocity, that's a contracting or poorer personal economy. So we want to move it quickly. So every month I'm looking, okay, I've protected my future. I've lined up the investments, moved it into there. And so that's happening as quickly as possible. Obviously, as we've said, we say in sports and my wrestling coach used to say to us in college, go quickly, but don't hurry, don't rush, because now we can make mistakes. But again, because of that habit, I generally have a lot of good things lined up. So when the money's there, we can move it into it. Or, again, if there's not something there, we have a good place to put it right now. The good news is a money market's making 5%, which is pretty sweet. So if there's no place to go, it's still multiplying itself and still going there quickly. I don't have it sitting in my operating account at the office like a lot of you do. I have a lot of clients that found out all their money sitting in their operating account, getting chewed up by the clinic and making no interest, or it's sitting in your personal savings making 1% or less than 1% interest. As soon as that cash comes out of the money machine, bang, velocity, move it where it needs to go. So hopefully you got it. It's the velocity of money. We don't serve money. We serve people and God. That's the left hand, but the right hand has to know where it's going and do it quickly. Bless you guys. Let us know if you need any help, and remember who you are.